Welcome back to World Gone Weird, folks. Buckle up, because today's news cycle is, well, weird. In fact, it is straight out of a dystopian novel.
Unfortunately, that's setting the bar pretty high these days, isn't it? I'm hoping we can find some silver linings in this pile of whatever it is.
Silver linings? In this mess. I'll believe it when I see it. Feels like we're just lurching from one crisis to the next. I'm not so sure about that silver lining, I really don't.
Indeed, it would be helpful to define silver lining in measurable terms. Are we speaking of a decrease in geopolitical instability, an improvement in socioeconomic metrics, or some other quantifiable index of societal well-being? We must avoid qualitative assessments that are devoid of empirical grounding. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking.
Okay, Professor Buzzkill, point taken. Let's start with something relatively simple, shall we? This State Department shakeup. Over 1,300 people laid off? Is that Rubio streamlining? Or is it, something more sinister?
Well, I think we have to acknowledge that every organization can benefit from some level of efficiency review. But 1,300 layoffs seems excessive, and the reports of diplomats leaving in tears, that suggests a real human cost. Those are lives and careers disrupted, whether you agree with their politics or not.
Excessive? Maybe. But was the State Department really that efficient to begin with? I've heard people complain for years that it's bloated and out of touch. If Trump wants to drain the swamp, and I use that term loosely, maybe this is what it looks like. Painful, sure, but maybe necessary in the long run. Tough call.
The claim of inefficiency warrants a rigorous quantitative analysis. What specific metrics are we using to assess the State Department's performance? Are there demonstrable correlations between personnel numbers and diplomatic effectiveness? We must move beyond anecdotal claims and subjective impressions to ascertain the actual impact of these layoffs. Show me the data.
Right, because data is always unbiased and tells the whole story. I mean, come on, guys. We're talking about politics here. There's always an agenda. So let's say, just for fun, that this is less about efficiency and more about, getting rid of anyone who might disagree with the president. Is that so far-fetched?
It's definitely a possibility, and that's what worries me. Dissenting voices are essential for good policymaking. If you surround yourself with only yes men, you're going to make bad decisions. And gutting you, SAID, at the same time. That's a huge blow to our humanitarian efforts around the world. Think about the impact on global health, disaster relief. It's short-sighted.
Okay, I hear you. But let's be honest, USAID hasn't exactly been a shining example of effective aid distribution, has it? I mean, we've poured billions into some of these countries, and what do we have to show for it? Maybe a complete reset is what's needed. A more targeted, results-oriented approach,
Again, we require empirical evidence. What specific metrics demonstrate the alleged ineffectiveness of USAID? What alternative models are being proposed? And what data supports their potential for superior outcomes? A complete dismantling, as suggested, carries the risk of unintended consequences, including the destabilization of regions reliant on US aid. A thorough cost-benefit analysis is essential, yet seems conspicuously absent. What happens if they decide to target Social Security next?
Oh, I'm sure the cost-benefit analysis is somewhere, probably buried under a pile of executive orders written on napkins. But seriously, all this talk of efficiency and effectiveness, it's just a smokescreen. It's about power, plain and simple. And let's be real, the deep state line is hilarious. Like there's some secret cabal running the world from a bunker somewhere. It's absurd. But, it makes for a good talking point.
I agree with the concerns that there is a concentration of power. And I think these power plays are damaging to the people the government should be looking after. It makes you almost long for the stability of a deep state. At least that would provide some consistent service to the public.
Okay, now you're just being dramatic. Deep state? I'm not sure I agree with you there, but it's just a term people are using to describe permanent government employees, and it seems overblown to me. If there's a deep state, how come nothing ever gets done in Washington? I mean, seriously.
The deep state assertion lacks a scientifically rigorous foundation. The notion of a clandestine group manipulating events is antithetical to evidence-based analysis. The complexity of bureaucratic processes and competing interests provides a more plausible explanation for governmental inertia. Moreover, such claims of a secret cabal serve to undermine trust in democratic institutions without demonstrable evidence of their existence or influence.
Okay, no deep state. Fine. But you can't deny that there's a whole lot of something going on here. Moving on to our next head scratcher. The president touring flood damage in Texas, praising the response, and then attacking a reporter for asking a legitimate question. Is that presidential behavior? Or is it, I don't know, performance art?
That was really troubling. People are suffering, they've lost loved ones, their homes are destroyed, and the president is more concerned with attacking a reporter for asking about the adequacy of flood warnings. It shows a real lack of empathy, in my opinion, and Secretary Noem potentially slowing FEMA's response? That's just unacceptable. There has to be a way to balance cost cutting with the urgent needs of people in crisis.
Well, let's just be fair. The president isn't always the best at answering questions, but maybe he's under a lot of pressure, all right? And this Noem woman, I don't know, but that's just a report, right? I mean, we don't know for sure that her policies slowed anything down. All I'm saying is let's not jump to conclusions based on, media reports.
We must evaluate the efficacy of the flood response based on quantifiable metrics, such as the timeliness of aid delivery, the number of people displaced, and the economic impact on affected communities. The president's subjective assessment and anecdotal claims must be substantiated by empirical data. Furthermore, under the allegations against Secretary Noem require a thorough investigation to determine if her policies demonstrably hindered the provision of emergency assistance. Only then can we draw informed conclusions.
Right. And while you're collecting all that data, people are still missing. And the president's worried about his PR. It's just, ugh. Okay, so the judge's order to stop the immigration raids in Los Angeles, is that a victory for justice, or is it tying the hands of law enforcement?
It's a victory for due process, plain and simple. The allegations of racial profiling are deeply disturbing. Everyone, regardless of their immigration status, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect under the law. This ruling shows that the legal system can work to prevent the abuse of power. It's a step in the right direction.
Okay, hold on. Are we sure this is racial profiling, or are these groups just looking for a way to challenge the administration's policies? I mean, the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable search and seizure, but the government also has a right to enforce immigration laws. Where's the balance? And, is this a PR stunt by the judge? And is there any concern for the increased criminal activity?
To assess the validity of the racial profiling allegations, we must examine the demographic data of those apprehended during the raids and compare it to the overall undocumented population in Los Angeles. Are there statistically significant disparities that cannot be explained by other factors, such as prior criminal records? Furthermore, what specific protocols govern the agent's decisions to initiate stops and searches? A rigorous analysis of these data points is crucial to determine whether the agent's actions are indeed discriminatory.
Okay, so while you're crunching those numbers, let's talk about the poor farm worker in California who's on life support after that immigration raid. A broken neck, a broken skull. Seriously? How does that happen during an immigration raid? It sounds like something out of a bad action movie. Like, it doesn't add up, you know?
It's heartbreaking. It highlights the devastating impact of these raids on individuals and their families. Regardless of the circumstances, a human being is on life support. How can we have an immigration system that leads to this kind of tragedy? It's inhumane. Even if he wasn't being directly pursued, the chaos of the situation clearly contributed to his injuries.
Well, that's what they're saying, right? He fell from a greenhouse roof. Sounds a little too convenient, doesn't it? Is there any evidence that the agents acted outside of their authority? Were proper procedures followed? There's a lot we don't know, and I just don't see accountability.
The causal link between the federal agent's actions and the farm workers' injuries warrants a rigorous scientific investigation. What specific protocols were followed during the raid? Were less lethal weapons deployed? And if so, what were the circumstances? What was the proximity of the agents to the farm worker at the time of the incident? A thorough examination of the evidence, including witness testimonies and forensic data, is essential to determine the extent to which the agent's actions contributed to the farm worker's injuries.
Right. And until we have that, it's just a bunch of he said, she said. But if it is true that this guy got seriously injured because of this raid, that's just awful. Okay, next up. The Senate's backing Ukraine aid, despite Trump's potential, whatever it is, he's planning to announce about Russia. Is this a sign of bipartisan support, or is it just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic?
I see it as a positive sign. It shows that there's still a commitment to international cooperation and stability, even amidst all the chaos. Supporting Ukraine is the right thing to do, morally and strategically. It sends a message that we won't stand by and watch as Russia continues its aggression. It is truly hopeful.
The Senate is doing what it is supposed to do. Let's just be sure that the Senate actually means what they are saying. It is hard for me to trust all of this.
I agree, we need evidence. How will this aid be distributed and to whom? What are the strategic objectives of this aid package and how will its success be measured? A plan for quantifiable measurements would be ideal. More specifically, how and why is it $500 million?
I would love to have a plan for the funds, but who really knows if there will be true accountability with these funds? But I guess a plan is better than just throwing money at the problem.
Well, this has been a rather bleak episode. What else is happening in the world? Has there been any good news, or is it just one disaster after another?
Good news? What does that look like? Let me just think. Is this a good time to talk about the weather?
Well, on that bombshell, I suggest our audience find themselves some weather that is more suited to their liking. That is all we have for today. Thanks for tuning in.
I trust that the listening audience will critically evaluate the claims presented during this program and seek evidence-based information from diverse sources to form their own informed opinions. Farewell.
Even though it seems difficult, I hope that all of you can find a way to connect, find the good in the world, and continue to try to live a good and kind life.
All right, folks, stay skeptical, keep asking questions, and try not to fall off any greenhouse roofs. Until next time.